worthwhile for me to enable this function. YouTube. Oh, many students think it's better. I know YouTube has the data center in Hong Kong, so that for me to enable this function, YouTube. Sorry. Anyway, so that I understand YouTube has a much bigger this kind of operation and system, right? So that in this case, you can see if you use this kind of YouTube, and then I think for those of you who are not on campus, so that YouTube may be a better in terms of bandwidth. I do believe YouTube is one of below to Google, and then there's much bigger, so that okay, so that if you want, then I can enable this kind of function, so that and then in this case you may also now simply try to look at YouTube, not the Zoom. But again, this just offer you, if you, I still it's mandatory. You have to log in the Zoom session, so that so the TA can record your attendance. Right? Do you say if you try to attend? I don't think it's easy for a TA to look at the take this attendance. So I think it's better, but that's why the YouTube is the way to enable. If you have a difficulty, or like at home, your Wi-Fi or this kind of thing is slow, and then I do think YouTube probably better than Zoom by this kind of company. So that I just offer this kind of additional function for you to make sure that you don't have this kind of problem. But I understand some of you maybe your internet speed may be not fast enough. Of course, I also need to understand, so that if you have any problem, your internet connection, do you have any? Yeah, because do you have any problem about the internet, this kind of connection? B, do you have any problem about internet connection? Especially, I think most likely it's okay, but I do think if you at home, and maybe your internet speed, especially now, maybe everybody work from home and study from home, so that so if that no internet traffic, and then I can see that this kind of YouTube may be better over alternative, this kind of data, right? This kind of video through not on the Zoom, but also through this kind of YouTube. I think I just turned on this one, so that in case you have problem, and then so that I can see this as probably is a alternative solution. And of course, let me try to, of course, we do quickly show you. I also want to ask questions, so that I do think for those of you have registered online, why enroll this course, I understand there's still some students in the waiting list. In this case, then I of course there's every course has certain quota, right? So that depends on the number of student interest. So that typically I think this course is about, I forgot, 100 or 120. Right, so that anyway, I told you. So again, so for this course, basically now we just think about, say, we cover about typical, right, building engineering, right? The function of the building. That means typically we take about the building like a material, indoor, this kind of comfort, health, lighting, water supply. These are typical thing, right? And building security, energy, and of course intelligent smart building, and also that something. Oh, I also will provide you some new topic about this kind of, for example, a sensor, right? Smart sensor, a sensor for smart building, and IoT, and also even the AR, VR, MR, or metaverse, right? Facebook changed the name to become metaverse. Meta, right? So that I do believe this kind of building engineering, this kind of AR, VR, MR will be important for this kind of virtual building, right? So that that's something, and also I will try to cover some of this kind of invite our manager or some key member of Hong Kong CRC to give a guest lecture for you to understand some latest topic, how we really try to look at most of the people in we have 45 people, right? Most than full-time RA postdoctor, they really work on the practical building engineering work, building a local and big construction company in Hong Kong and mainland China, right? So that actually I should try to show you this website so that at least you have some idea. So this is a 300 million Hong Kong dollar project, so that we do encourage some of you, if interested, you can also do some intern or co-op, whatever, so that we do have big money, so that if you want to make some money and to work as an intern or whatever, we're welcome. So we have this moment, we have about 4 to 5 start team actually. At this moment, 90% of the full-time people in this center most likely is really work on the real product orientation and work with building a big construction company in Hong Kong and mainland China. So that it's not, this is a really real thing. It's not for fun, but it can be, if interesting or you worry about the job opportunity, especially COVID-19, I do understand. Unfortunately, some of you may, your family member may lost a job. Like I do understand Hong Kong it's in lockdown mode for a long time, more than 1 or 2 years, so that some of your family member, your parent may be difficulty in financial situations, so that we do offer some opportunity for you to work as intern or full-time RA and join the startup team in this Hong Kong CRC, so that this is special opportunity for you if you care about your future or you want to understand about real building construction, building engineering, and want to become super rich, so that you will see, right? So that of course Professor Zhexiang Li has a really good mentorship, right? So that he trained a series of PhD students become super rich, right? So that like DJI is Frank Wang's as a Professor Zhexiang Li student, and then of course I also know a series of the Professor Zhexiang Li is a PhD student that become the CEO of automation robotics company. So that anyway, I just told you that the building engineering is important in Hong Kong and mainland China, of course, at this moment. So that we unfortunately we cannot give you this kind of online teaching, but I do offer you some opportunity to do even Europe project or intern project through 300 million Hong Kong dollar project, 5-year project. Of course, I do have also this Hong Kong CRC also have a collaboration with UC Berkeley. One of my postdoctors will go to UC Berkeley for this kind of a joint exchange program. So that $300 million project has some international collaboration with UC Berkeley in United States. So that again, so that let's give you some idea about things. So I don't know, do you have any question after for this content of this kind of course? Any question? Any question up now? No question about this syllabus? No? Okay. So, you want, if you have some additional new idea, you want to learn more about this. Basically, it's general education, right? Some specific topic for this kind of building engineering. Of course, another thing, at this moment, you see, we are not only have building in the physical building in the near future with blockchain, right? How the blockchain or NFT, right? Or you know that NFT is something quite hot topic, so that how we can build virtual building in the virtual world, in the metaverse, right? So that I can see that offer some new opportunity for building engineering, right? So that I don't know, you know that there's one virtual building in the virtual world, NFT or something, then sell one land on the virtual building, Wonderland, and then for I think at least $1 million US dollar, meaning US dollar. You understand? So that of course building a house, why all the building business in Hong Kong so big, but now on the virtual metaverse world, if you look at the founder and CEO of Facebook, he mentioned like metaverse is a big future and creative, maybe $1 billion business. So that actually I do think this kind of metaverse, why how you use this kind of sensor, actuator, VR, AR, MR over some of the virtual world, why have a virtual building, why is something quite important. So that you may want to think about how to construct this kind of virtual building and make money through this blockchain, through NFT. I don't know if any of you have idea about NFT for this kind of virtual building, virtual land, right? So that there are several this kind of virtual land sell for big money. It's not small money. You'll be surprised, right? So that many people want to get some cryptocurrency and also NFT, or maybe want to buy those kind of virtual building, virtual land on this kind of virtual world, right? So that that's something I can see. It offers some new opportunity for all of you, I can say. So that anyway, so this of course for this course we do have some reference for about this thing. Oh, first thing is I do think you may be have ever I have idea about this mind mapping. This is also quite important for learning, right? Any do you have any do you know how to use? Do you know this kind of mind mapping? I think this is one way for you to have a better way to enhance learning, especially COVID-19. So that basically our learning somehow is not just listen to our lecture. Learning is you have more actively to engage what we are talking about in our, not only the lecture, during the lecture, but also our material. And then are you able to think more, right? So that, to make sure that your brain can really have a good understanding of content, have used and find some useful thing, right, for your future to equip your more knowledge skill. So basically, mind mapping is somehow is a good strategy for you to enhance your learning. Any of you have tried to use mind mapping for your learning? One student say a line drawing concept related map, like spider web. I think Li Po Yan mentioned the basic idea of mind mapping is actually come from the one of a very famous this kind of educator, Tony Buzan. He do have a book and also some software about mind mapping. Basically, mind mapping means what? Our human brain is somehow it's what as nonlinear, very complex thing. If you try to learn some, okay, I'll give you a lecture, no, and then so just I just watch. Look at attend our lecture and then see somehow it may not be effective for you to learn our thing. So mind mapping means they try to think about your mind, your brain is nonlinear. So if you try to learn, okay, you learn about our lecture, right? Lecture, no, and then can you try to reorganize those kind of something you learn and then create some mind mapping a map, so that in this case you can help you to remember and learn more in more effective way. So this is something I do think, especially now with online teaching mode, I do encourage you try to think about once you learn about thing, and then you may want to think about this kinds of mind mapping to make your own mind mapping map for this course and for many other courses or some other new knowledge you want to learn by example. So basically, mind mapping basically is something they try to you can see here I show you, so that okay, maybe mind mapping for our building engineering, so that you can try to think about this thing as a way you create your own this kind of mind mapping, Why through some of software online of some software, so that in this case help you to remember and to learn in much more this kind of practical thing. And basically I think this is quite interesting, important for you to understand. Our human brain somehow is non-linear human brain, so that if you just study lecture note one slide number 1, 2, 3, 4 probably is something is difficult, and then but if you try to reorganize what you have learned and then draw this kind of mind mapping by yourself, and then try to and then in this case enhance your learning effectiveness, and also you can easily remember things. So I do recommend you try to think about to create this kind of mind mapping, so that to help you to have a better this kind of way to learn about this course and many other courses, right? So that Tony do have some very good insight about this kind of mind map again. So that I do think it's important for you to if you have never tried to look at this kind of mind mapping as way for learning, teaching and learning, enhance your learning. So maybe I quickly go through here for you to 5 minutes. You understand. Again, the key thing is our human brain is non-linear, very complicated neural network, right? So that it's not linear. So you study, okay, 1, 2, our syllabus, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, a slide. Top 1, 2, 3 is a linear way, so that it's difficult to absorb. So, but if you try to reorganize what we have learned, not only this course, and then try to draw the mind mapping map, so that in this case, I do think it's something useful for you to try to take this kind of new kind of learning strategy to make sure you have a better way to better this kind of a learning experience, have a better grade, and then better not only this course but the other course. Actually, this have been used in practical engineering, like Boeing company use mind mapping for their engineering for this airplane aeronautical engineering. So it turned out to be much more effective, more creative. So that let me quickly show you. If I can see I asked you, and then not too many try to use the strategy. So that let me quickly use this 5 minutes. You listen to one of Tony. Actually, he actually proposed mind mapping, and he has a book. I can share with his ebook for you to enhance. There's a new learning strategy, especially now we have online teaching. I do understand online teaching may not be the best for all of you. This is a big problem. Okay, let me quickly just listen to the world leading expert about mind mapping. Hopefully, you can adopt this one at least for our course and for the other learn some new courses.
Do you want to maximize your mind's creative potential and generate brilliant ideas? Tony Buzan is a best-selling author and world-renowned expert on creativity, learning and memory. He has helped millions of people across the world unlock their potential with his intuitive thinking tool, the Mind Map. So, what are mind maps?
These are techniques for thinking that over 40 years and thousands of years of experience and research have been found to be the ways in which we think most effectively. And I studied neurophysiology, I studied psychology, I studied psycholinguistics, I studied pre-medicine, I studied the notes of the great thinkers, and I studied myself, what actually worked for me and what didn't. And over the 40 years evolved the mind map.
Mind maps are easy to create and effective. We start with an eye-catching central image in the middle of a blank page. We then create branches that radiate out from this image and reflect your ideas.
You start a mind map with an image in the center. Why an image? Picture is worth 1,000 words, stimulates memory, stimulates associations, stimulates your thought. From the central image, the second law is main curvilinear branches. These emanate from the central image. Those main branches are curvilinear because thinking is natural, it's organic. and the curvilinear branch attracts the brain more. Those branches, which are called in psychology, in idiomatic language, the BOIs, the basic ordering ideas, are fundamentally the chapter headings of your thought. From those branches emanate, not hanging off the ends, but emanating from the main branches, the BOIs, the chapter headings, emanate these second level ideas. From those, the third level, from those, the fourth level, and very quickly you realize that the mind map as a manifestation of your thought is an infinite thinking process. You can go on adding branches to this branch forever. You can go on adding branches to this branch forever. So the mind map reflects the fact that potentially your thinking, your intelligences are infinitely capable of generation.
Add only one key word to each branch, avoiding phrases or sentences.
Wherever you can, and this should be basically everywhere, one key idea per branch. Why one and not two? Why not a phrase? The reason is that each key idea, each key word, each key image is like a little exploding supernova. So every one radiates out associations. And when you're building a mind map, you want each one of those supernovas of meaning to have the freedom to generate ideas. If you put them in phrases, it's like putting your hand in a cast. You rigidify all the joints, which is what makes your arm and hand such a phenomenally competent tool. Similarly with the mind map, the single word per line rule actually gives you more explosive freedom, more explosive creativity.
To make your map more effective, you should use colour and stimulating images throughout.
The mind map triggers. It uses colour instead of monochrome. Colours, plural. Do you like colours? Of course you do. And a colour is a thinking tool. It's not some childish thing. Colour allows you to order, to discriminate, to code, to highlight, to generate thought, to remember. It's an ultimate thinking tool if used well, and especially in the context of the mind map. Images throughout. Same as for the central image, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So if you have images throughout your mind map, then you are going to automatically have more powerful memory, more stimulation, more interest, more generative thought.
Mind mapping has been proven to boost your productivity, creativity, memory and comprehension, and can be used for almost anything, from planning and organising tasks to generating ideas and presenting. Visit our website at thinkbusan.com to find out more.
Okay, so anyway, so I just tell you, it's important for you to understand about your brain, how your brain works, and so that then how you can enhance your learning efficiency, right? You say so. This is something. Of course, they do have some software, online software. You can try to think about to use this one to learn about this course or the other kind of new knowledge skill, right? So that actually, if you try to Google, you find actually a series of this kind of online this mind mapping, right? So that the tool, so that you online, probably you want to see this online free, right? Free online mapping field, so that you can try to think about if they can be useful for you to enhance this kind of learning. That means you attend the lecture, look at lecture note, and then then you think about, okay, create a mind map for this kind of lecture note, right? So that then it can probably much easier for you to enhance this thing, right? As I told you, this is a quite important and practical like tool. So it has been used in not only the learning, but also in actually they also people also use this one for practical engineering. Like as I mentioned, Boeing company try to use mind mapping for this kind of engineering, the new kind of building design manufacturing. So it turns out to be much more efficient, right? So that and this is something I just tell you. No, I do think this can be useful, like way for our this kind of online teaching mode, so that why not, right? Now everything's online, so why not use another more additional online tools, right? Like a free online mind mapping tools, so that you try to make this kind of mind mapping for this kind of course content, so that you can try to be first is enhance your efficiency, right, of this kind of learn, this kind of new knowledge skill. Second thing is they also mention it can be more creative, and because you understand our human brain is really nonlinear, so that just like that all the deep learning, right, AI deep learning neural actually is nonlinear, this kind of neural network, right? So that's something I think is quite important, interesting for you to think about. And then of course then additional reference would be, for example, this kind of ebook, right? So that intelligent building and those things, and you can also try to look at this kind of thing from our online library and see. So this kind of is online, so that of course I can see probably there's a limit number of students can accept this online ebook at one time. So, but at least I tell you that I offer you now we have online teaching, and why not we use additional online the ebook and online these tools, right? Mind mapping for you to make sure it can be more effective. Now, thing, of course, that's something is give you additional this kind of help, right? So that again, so that I don't know, do you have any question? So that this is something I do think is worthwhile for you to think about how to overcome the difficulty in this COVID-19 pandemic, right? So use additional tool for you. Okay, so anyway, so that I should try to think again, so that at this moment we our venue is a Zoom video conference. I do think at this moment I do think it's very difficult for us to go back to the this kind of regular teaching in the classroom, right? So of course we will try to wait for the notice from UST administration to see if COVID-19 is under control. So hopefully we can go to mixed mode or regular this kind of classroom, this kind of teaching. But personally, I think it's probably very challenging at this moment, because the number of new confirmed case keep increasing, like 300, 600, and then maybe today, tomorrow, 1,000. Wow, I personally, I think it's very challenging. But anyway, let's see. Anyway, now I think we should go back to our this kind of content. So again, Hong Kong do have so many this kind of tall building, right? Especially Hong Kong have a small land area is limited, so that we once you have a limited kind of space in 2D, and in this case, can we go to 3D? 3D, that means go have a much taller building, right? So that in this case, overcome the limitation of limit the space in 2D this world, right? So that this is thing, that's why we have so many tall buildings. Of course, one good thing here is Hong Kong, we have a very solid foundation, so that then we have almost no earthquake. So that we, when we have a building engineering, so that we don't suffer the kind of earthquake, so that it's much easier to use lower costs, right, to build this kind of tall building. If those building engineer in Japan, Taiwan, and then they have to think about additional engineering design, make sure that the building can survive in very, very big earthquake, right? So that's something in Hong Kong. Actually, we're lucky. Of course, only issue for Hong Kong, the building design is we have to make sure that we have work on this kind of building design under structural dynamics. That means once a big typhoon, right? I think 7 years ago we have super typhoon, right? So I think the Hong Kong government do have some special building code, right? When you design the building, and then you have to do this kind of study about if the building can survive under some certain kind of big wind, right? Wind loading is one of important aspect for building engineering design. Okay, of course, let me quickly go through the thing, right? The building is not new, right? So that many years ago, and as when we have this kind of, before we have modern building engineering, so that we actually in the old day, the minimum, what's the minimum way for building? Actually, in old day, we most likely more important is on the basic need, right, for survival, right? So that you have in before we have advanced this kind of engineering, this kind of technology, so that you can see that we maybe only have certain cave, right, and very basic things, so that for people like 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 many years ago to survive, right? So that for basic water, food, and clothes in the shelter, and also we can share this one's protection and protect against maybe even wild animal, wild attack. So that this give you some basic idea about these things. So of course, in China we do have this kind of local dian, right? This cake size, so that this is another quite good example for you to understand about this kind of building engineering. So that in old day, in 1,000, 2,000 years, the building is very different, I would say. So this is something I would say interesting for you to understand. We go through this kind of historical view about the building, right?
Of our ancestors, the Peking Man site at Zhoukoudian. This is Longkou Mountain in the village of Zhoukoudian, southwest of Beijing. Longkou means animal fossils. The site's long been important because fossils are used in Chinese medicine. Tests on some of them in 1926, however, revealed they weren't of animals, but of human teeth, estimated to be between 400 and 500,000 years old. The ancestor who had them became known as Peking Man. The discovery of traces of an unknown human ancestor shook the world of anthropology and led to large-scale excavations. An almost perfect skull of Peking Man was discovered on the 2nd of December 1929. The forehead was much lower and the eyebrows jutted out more than modern man's. Its less rounded head is believed to have contained a brain about 2/3 the size of the human brain today. This is a reconstructed bust model of a Peking Man. The discovery of Peking Man's remains has been indispensable in learning about evolution. This photo was taken the day after the discovery. The skull was wrapped in layers of newspaper and kept in plaster. Pei Wenzhong made the find. He is often referred to as the father of Chinese archaeology. Subsequent excavations led to caves where Peking men lived. Various kinds of stone tools were found. Peking man used different sizes and degrees of hardness according to the task in hand. Some remains indicated the use of fire. This is fossilized ash. Peking man used fire to cook their prey. The discovery meant the oldest historical evidence of human use of fire had to be rewritten a few 100,000 years earlier than previously thought. Other skull fragments were later found, making a total of 5 skulls, but they were lost during the Second World War. Excavations resumed afterwards. Significant Peking Man skull fragments were found in 1966. A perfectly reconstructed model of a Peking man skull was shown to the public for the first time in China in 2003.
Okay, so this gives you some simple, very short this kind of video for you to understand about this kind of a building in the maybe 1,000, 2,000 or many years ago. So that from basically basic building engineering requirement is first is again it's key thing here. We try to protect human, right? Human against from this kind of weather, maybe big like storm and the wild animal and attack from your enemy. So that's something. And of course, gradually, right, after so many years, right, many thousand years evolution, so that then we try to create much more sophisticated this kind of building engineering design, right? Not just very basic things. So that most likely in our current this kind of building you see in Hong Kong or many big cities, so that most likely our building engineering will try to work on those kind of things, right? For example, we have certain kind of air conditioning system in Hong Kong or HVAC for those northern part of China or Russia or North Europe, United States, so that they have to have a heating, HVAC, heating, ventilation, air conditioning system to control the temperature, humidity, moisture, and sunlight, and other things. Of course, some of these kind of a tall building, you have some closed system. That means closed system. That means you have certain kind of ventilation, and then most likely the ventilation inside the building. But you need to what? If there's so many people inside the building, then you need to have some fresh air. Additional this kind of design to provide oxygen from outside the building, so that for those modern building, there's an additional, much more sophisticated this kind of design and for ventilation system, right? Of course, pollutant is another in the air is another important thing, right? So pollutant typically we care about this kind of PM 35, and then they are very similar this kind of bioaerosol from very small to large, right? So that of course there's certain kind of PM particulate matter, right? And then so of course depends on this kind of requirement. So people understand in real engineering find out. So some kind of this kind of aerosol, small particle, may be very bad for human health. So that in this case is important. So for modern building engineering, we have much more sophisticated in terms of air indoor air quality engineering, right? So that and of course in this case beside this kind of like indoor environment, we have what? We also sometimes the building will provide additional like water supply, also wastewater, this kind of the system, and then so that of course some building provide some other thing more than just you just survive only, right? Live, work, eat, sleep, and many other things, and some maybe some movie theater and other things, right? So that and then of course again, so this is something gradually we involve much more sophisticated this kind of modern building engineering, right? So of course in recent years, many government in the world, right? So that they think about this kind of energy, how we can have more energy the building with a much better energy efficiency is become very big important issue now. So Hong Kong government do have this kind of a funding or initiative, right? Like EMSD, right? Hong Kong, one of the important EMSD have some energy office, right, to promote those kind of energy efficient design for the building, right? So that's become quite important. I don't know if you have some idea why Hong Kong government so care about energy efficient for the building or energy efficiency. Any idea why Hong Kong government so care? Huh? Because Hong Kong has very small this kind of land, right? The area is so small, but we have a big population. In terms of this kind of population density, right? Hong Kong is almost top 3 in the world. So that in this case, what happened? We have so many people and so many cars, so many things, and so many buildings. So that means in terms of a carbon footprint per capita, Hong Kong is almost top 3 in the world. So that I think most of you understand why there's some international this kind of agreement. So by certain year, many country have to reduce the CO2 emission to a certain level. So Hong Kong government actually have to meet this kind of international, this kind of agreement, right, to reduce this kind of CO2 emission. Otherwise, what happened? Otherwise, some country, if you it produce much more CO2 according to the international agreement, and you need to pay some penalty, carbon tax, so that every country has some carbon budget. So that become quite important thing, right? If the government have to pay the tax to the international this kind of carbon this kind of CO2 emission, and then so that it turns out everybody may have to pay more this kind of the tax to the Hong Kong government. So that's why Hong Kong government have certain kind of a policy and the funding to encourage this kind of energy efficiency. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so this is give you some idea. That's why I also have this kind of thing, right? So in the past 7 years, I try to think about how those sensors can we come with a low cost this kind of micro sensor for smart building or to increase this kind of energy efficiency, right? Smart air conditioning system, smart building with a lot more sensor and AI. So that become a quite important thing now for Hong Kong. Yeah. And of course, I do have some start company really try to think about how to use this kind of AI, how to use additional sensor IoT for this kind of energy efficiency in the building, reduce this kind of CO2 emission. I do think there's a series of company work on this part now. And again, so that if you look at a typical this kind of living environment, so that again, we care most likely temperature, humidity, pressure. Pressure depends on the altitude, and of course, some of the indoor environment pressure is important. I do not what kind of the indoor environment pressure is critical. Any idea? Altitude, that means for those kind of place, it's a high altitude in the mountain, and then of course the pressure become important issue. What kind of indoor environment, a building, the pressure is important? One student, Bo Yi, mentioned the hospital. And yes, I think this is a very good answer. So especially hospital in what? ICU. If somebody got COVID-19 virus and very bad, right, and they have to send to the ICU in hospital. So those kind of ICU in hospital, most likely they have the very good control about this pressure inside ICU, so that they make sure that they can what? They can try to minimize this kind of problem, infection, additional infection for those very weak patient in ICU. So of course, another pressure control is like a semiconductor, the kind of a clean room environment. You know that actually I was in charge in the HKUST nano fabrication facility, and then so that the inside the clean room facility make the semiconductor chip, our micro machine main sensor chip. We have the very important to also control this pressure inside the clean room. So make sure that those particle, right, very small particle inside the clean room facility to fabricate advanced microchip now will be go away, right? Otherwise, small particle may kill, damage this kind of your microchip fabrication process. So this is thing, right? And of course, this lighting is also quite important. Air quality in terms of maybe CO2 and CO, and also maybe aerosol. Aerosol now is a bioaerosol, like COVID-19 suspended viruses and bacteria and noise, and then odor. So these are the typical thing important. Of course, in the following weeks, we will try to provide a lot more detail to look at much more in terms of building engineering. Okay, and and of course, here let's give you some typical idea about what typical temperature issue affect the human, and then so that typically, so that actually, so this is give you some very rough idea about how the temperature affect about humans sensation of human thermal comfort, right? So that actually I have one PhD student just think about how to make a low cost micro human thermal comfort sensor, right? So human thermal is much more complicated. Okay, I will mention later in the following weeks. So typically, see in typically for example, like 24, I think Hong Kong government they recommend EMSD recommend 24 degrees C is probably the best thing to find the balance between the human thermal comfort and energy efficiency for the HVAC air conditioning system in Hong Kong. 24 degrees. This is the typical thing. I think Hong Kong government. I do know that the Hong Kong government EMSD have certain kind of 24. It's a very rough. Degree C is one of typical this kind of target temperature, at least for more by Hong Kong government to find the balance between human thermal comfort and energy saving, right? Of course, if you some of the indoor environment, especially those kind of shopping mall, right? In Hong Kong, I mean, tall building, sometimes they try to have much lower temperature, so that in this case, and I think one thing is if you lower temperature, what happens? You can also reduce the humidity, so that so that's another issue about HVAC engineering. We'll discuss a little more in the future. Anyway, so in very rough thing, we just talk about this 24 degree, and if you go in higher, 30 and 35 in Hong Kong, typically we are in this range, right? 35, 36 to about now it's around the 15 something, right? So this range, right? So that this is a typical thing. Now we'll try to focus on how can we achieve this kind of optimize this kind of temperature range, right, for HVAC system. Okay, so that I just tell you this is quite actually it looks simple, but in reality it's not easy. If you want to make sure the temperature inside the building in every place inside the building to have this almost reach the same temperature, actually it's not easy. It's difficult. And anyway, so that typically, of course, for hot, what's hot here for engineer, we have to be in quantitative, right? So typically human body temperature is around 37 degrees C. Of course, you can vary between certain range, right? That's why I think even for those students in the primary school and high school, middle school, I think the school require to take the body temperature every day, especially in the COVID-19 pandemic. So that and then of course, if you go to like 38, well, you can see you may have some sweating. 39, 40 degree, you can have cause some big problem, dehydration. 41, medical emergency. 42, you have a very big problem. 43, it's also critical. Temperature, it can cause death. So doing that, so that if 44, so you see the human body has certain kind of very narrow range. So that's why over us have to wear certain kind of clothing to make sure that's thing, right, to maintain certain kind of temperatures in a typical range, right, so people can survive, without any problem. Okay, so that very cold. So that in this case, so that typically, why? So the human body temperature, if it lowers 1 degree, that means okay. But if 35 degree, then you can see you have this kind of hypothermia, and then you're seeing 34. You can see it's lower than the 3 degree. Is a very severe the shivering, and then 33, and then it's severe confusing sleepiness. You see, so the human body has a very narrow range of temperature range. It can work properly. Okay, so that of course, if you look at the much more beyond temperature, so that for our building engineering, actually we have a much more sophisticated this kind of temperature and humidity range. Why? So that well, we are mentioning a bit more in the following weeks about actually temperature. If you are not in our this kind of building engineering, mechanical engineering, and then actually we have a much more sophisticated way to define what is temperature, like a dry bulb temperature, wet bulb temperature, and dew point temperature. These are all much more sophisticated way to specify the kind of indoor environment inside the building and to be more comfortable, right? So that actually this kind of graph is come from, I think, thermodynamics or some professional building engineering. So basically, I just quickly show you basically what typical thing is that they specify certain is X dry bulb and this dew point. So in this thing, then they specify some optimize this kind of working comfort zone here. You have to define certain kind of this kind of temperature, T and the dB dry bulb. This is a typical temperature you measure with typical thermometer or this infrared or temperature sensor now in the COVID-19, right? And then, but also we have additional temperature sensor to measure the dew point temperature. And then here, CLO. What's CLO? It's some kind of special unit in our building engineering about the close this kind of condition. Anyway, so I will describe a little bit more about this kind, a lot more sophisticated building engineering in the following weeks. And then, of course, then another thing is, of course, we're mentioning about the pressure issue. So that typically, when we okay, again, human can survive in certain kind of pressure range. If you go to the very tall mountain, Hong Kong don't have a very tall mountain, but if you go to like a Himalaya or something very tall mountain, maybe 4,000 like a meter, then you may have some problem, right? So that they maybe have certain kind of we call this kind of sickness, right? So typical thing they call the acute mountain sickness. So that in this case, because why? If you get this kind of high altitude, and then the CO2, oxygen, this concentration in very tall, this kind of high altitude is below, much lower, and then you may not can have efficient. You cannot absorb human when you breathe. You cannot have enough this kind of oxygen, then that could create some big problem. And some people may have a very big issue and cause some, you can see, dizziness, headache, and a lot more this issue. Do you understand? So that is something. In Hong Kong, we have no problem here. But if you come from some country or region which is a high altitude, right? So that maybe in Tibet, right? And I think in some country and region, it's a in high altitude, then is an important concern. Yeah. Anyway, so that of course now we have advanced low cost micro sensor. I think all the new smartphone you have now, you do have this kind of pressure sensor in your smartphone, like iPhone 6 or beyond. So that, do you understand? So your smartphone, I don't know, do you know why nowadays all the new smartphone has this kind of pressure sensor? Any idea? I will mention about why all this new smartphone has this kind of have this kind of low cost pressure sensor? Why? Oh, one student. What? Okay, so that yeah, very good. Actually, those kind of pressure sensor in your smartphone is they call the barometer or barometric pressure sensor. Basically, it's measure the altitude. So that why smartphone need this kind of sensor? Because every smartphone has what? Every smartphone has GPS now, most likely. But GPS can only look at what XY coordinate system. For you to do the navigation, your smartphone has Google Map navigation, but GPS, if you're in those kind of in the tunnel or in man-made tall building, and then the GPS signal from satellite may be very weak. In this case, for two pressure sensor basically is can help you to what? Locate the altitude, give you additional coordinate system for navigation, seeing while doing things. So that that is sometimes is important for this kind of navigation for smartphone, this kind of app, Google Map, and some of advanced this kind of app. So that may need this kind of GPS, may need this kind of barometric pressure sensor in your smartphone, and plus another man's motion sensor. Almost 99.9% in your smartphone has a man's motion sensor, means a man's accelerometer and man's gyroscope, and also digital compass, right? Digital compass especially is a magnetic sensor. So anyway, so I will give you a little more information, okay? Anyway, so that of course, there's another important thing about the lighting and living conditions. So that the lighting, of course, typically every tall building inside the apartment, and we have to have this kind of lighting. So that typically is a all day fluorescent lamp. Of course, gradually, I think Hong Kong also promote to be more energy efficient, the lighting, for example, going to LED, right? So that I think the government do provide this kind of incentive or motivation for many this kind of government building or some business building to replace this kind of fluorescent lamp by those kind of more energy efficient LED lighting. In all day, LED lighting may not be good. Although it's energy efficient, but it's not good. Do you know what's the problem? Like if 10 years ago, LED, the lighting, those kind of quality of lighting is not very good. When you see this kind of LED lighting in all day, it's not very healthy, I would say. And so that the color, temperature, and those kind of optical spectrum of the LED lighting is not as good as the fluorescent lamp. But now, I think in recent year, engineer gradually improved LED lighting. So quality of lighting, right, into the color, temperature, and all things, it be as good. Gradually approach this kind of fluorescent lamp. So I can see that if you look at more detail about this solid state LED and also solid state this LED lighting, I think gradually this become better and better. Okay. So anyway, I will cover some of these things, and then of course, second thing is about the air quality. Of course, air quality is critical in Hong Kong, right? So many cars, so many building and air conditioning system, and so that then we care about this kind of issue about do we have some kind of PM 2.5, or some maybe now we care about COVID-19, this kind of aerosol, why it can spread. So air quality become quite important, and then noise is also quite important thing. And actually, your smartphone has a man's microphone. Actually, there's some smartphone app can be used as noise meter. Okay, so that the local sensor, micro sensor, can be very useful for this kind of smartphone, smart car, smart building. Okay, so that I will mention something. Okay, and then noise pollution, of course, is something that's why there's another issue about building engineering. How can we come with better design of the building with right material, right engineer design so it can minimize this kind of noise pollution, right? Of course, new type of the building maybe use not only additional sensor and control, you can do this kind of active noise cancellation, right? So that actually is very possible now. Your smartphone has multiple mains microphone and has active action, some additional this kind of signal processing to add the way to do some noise reduction. You know, every smartphone has a new smartphone now have at least 2 or 3 or 4 this kind of mains microphone have this kind of good noise, this kind of reduction, right? Especially you go to on the street, so that when you try to use your smartphone, have some this kind of good this kind of way, right? Noise reduction. Okay. Anyway, I think run out of time. So that again, so today we just quickly give you this kind of introduction about the building engineering. So that I don't know, do you have any question? Any question about today's? Any question about today's lecture? No. Of course, again, the important thing here today is to give you very brief introduction about building engineering. So that and of course, the key thing is I think building construction is still a big business in Hong Kong, and so that some of you may still want to go for the building engineering or building construction or building service industry. And of course, I was actually have been involved in the big 300 million Hong Kong dollar project for Hong Kong CRC for how to use automation robotics for automated building construction. So that's another important thing, because Hong Kong we have many typical every age about the construction worker is more than 50 years old. So many young people like you don't want to go work as a construction worker. So that the Hong Kong government provide this money to see how can we have more automation for building construction or robotics. And so this is an initiative from Hong Kong government. So that welcome some of you, if you want to do some intern or understand more or work with our 45 full-time this kind of people on this building construction automation, welcome to contact me. Okay, I think that's it for today's lecture. Do you have any question? Again, another take-home message. I encourage you try to use additional this kind of map mapping as way to, after you attend this lecture and look at lecture note, can you make map mapping just like a little kid have a drawing using different color pen and then draw the map mapping about our course content. I do believe this can be help to enhance your learning efficiency. Okay, I think that's it for the lecture. And any other question? If not, that's it. Okay.